Albert Einstein at school. Albert Einstein, born in 1879, is regarded as the greatest physicist since Newton. In the following extract from the Young edition, the well known biographer Patrick Pringle describes the circumstances which led to Albert Einstein's expulsion from a German school. In what year, Einstein asked the history teacher, did the Prussians defeat the French at Waterloo? I don't know, sir. Why don't you know? You have been told it often enough. I must have forgotten. Did you ever try to learn? Asked Mr. Brown. No, sir, Albert replied, with his unusual unthinking honesty. Why not? I can't see any point in learning dates. One can always look them up in a book. Mr. Brown was speechless for a few moments. You amaze me, Einstein, he said at last. Don't you realize that one can always look most things up in books? That applies to all the facts you learn at school. Yes, sir. Then I suppose you don't see any point in learning facts. Frankly, sir, I don't, said Albert. Then you don't believe in education at all? Oh, yes, sir, I do. I don't think learning facts is education. In that case, said the history teacher with a heavy sarcasm, perhaps you will be so kind as to tell the class the Einstein's theory of education. Albert flushed. I think it's not fact that matters, but ideas, he said. I don't see the point in learning the dates of battles, or even which the armies killed more men. I did be more interested in learning with those soldiers why they were trying to kill each other. That's enough. Mr. Brown's eyes were cold and cruel. We don't want a lecture from you, Einstein. You will stay in for an extra period today, although I don't imagine it will do you much good. It won't do the school any good either. You are a disgrace. I don't want why you continue to come. It's not my wish, sir, Albert pointed out. Then you are ungrateful boy and ought to be ashamed of yourself. I suggest you ask your father to take you away. Albert felt miserable when he left the school that afternoon. Not that it had been a bad day, most days were bad now, anyway, but because he had to go back to the hateful place to the next morning. He only wished his father would take him away, but there was no point in even asking. He knew what the answer would be. He would have to stay until he had taken his diploma. Going back to his lodgings did not cheer him up. His father has so little money to spare that Albert had been found a room in one of the poorest quarters of Munich. He did not mind the bad food and lack of comfort, or even the dirt and squirrel, but he hated the atmosphere of slum violence. His landlady beat her children regularly, and every Saturday her husband came drunk and beat her. But at least you have a room of your own, which is more than I can say, said Yuri, when he called round in the evening. At least you live among civilized human beings, even if they are all poor students, said Albert. They are not all civilized, Yuri replied. Did you not hear that one of them was killed last week in a duel? And what happened to one who killed him? Nothing, of course. He is even proud of it. His only worry is that the authorities have told him not to fight any more duels. He is upset about this because he hasn't a single scar on his face to wear for the rest of his life as a badge of honor. Ah, exclaimed Albert. And these are the students. Well, you are a student one day, said Yuri. I doubt it, said Albert glumly. I don't think I will ever pass the exam for the school diploma. He told his cousin Elsa the same next time she came to Munich. Normally, she lived in Berlin, where her father had a business. I am sure you could learn enough to pass the exam, Albert. If you tried, she said. I know lots of boys who are much more stupid than you are, who get through. They say you don't have to know anything, you don't have to understand. What you are taught, just be able to repeat it in the exam. That's the whole trouble, said Albert. I am not good at learning things by heart. You don't need to be good at it. Anyone can learn like a parrot. You just don't try. And yet I always see you with a book under your arm, said Elsa. What is the one you are reading? A book on geology. Geology? Rocks and things. Do you learn that? No. We have hardly any science at school. Then why you are studying it? Because I like it. Isn't that a good enough reason? Elsa sighed. You are right, of course, Albert, she said, but it won't help with your diploma. Apart from books on science, his only comfort was music and he played violin. His violin regularly until his landlady asked him to stop. That's willing gets on my nerves, she said. There's enough noise in this house, with all the kids howling. Albert was tempted to point out that most of the time it was she who made them howl. But he decided it was better to say nothing. I must get away from here, he told Yuri. After 6 months alone in Munich. It is absurd that I should go on like this. In the end, it will turn out I have been wasting my father's money and everyone's time. It will be better for all if I stop now. And then what will you do? Yuri asked. I don't know. If I go to Milan, I am afraid that my father will send me back, unless his eyes gleamed with a sudden idea. Yuri, do you know any friendly doctor? I know a lot of medical students, and some of them are friendly, said Yuri. Doctor, no. I have never had enough money to go to one. Why? Suppose, said Albert, that I had a nervous breakdown. Suppose a doctor would say it's a bad for me to go to school and I need to get right away from it. I can't imagine a doctor saying that, said Yuri. I must try, said Albert, to find a doctor who specializes in nerves. There's a plenty of them, Yuri told him. He hesitated for a moment and then added, rather reluctantly, I will ask some of the students that if they know one, if you like. Will you? Oh, thank you, Yuri. Albert's eyes were shining. Wait a moment, I haven't found one yet. Oh, but you will. And if I do, I don't know if he will be willing to help you. He will, declared Albert. I am going to have a real nervous breakdown to make it easier for him. He laughed merrily. I have never seen you looking less nervous. Remember, Yuri, a day or two at school will soon put that right, Albert assured him. Certainly he had lost his high spirits when Yuri saw him next. I can't stand it any longer, he said. I really shall have a nervous breakdown that will satisfy any doctor. Keep it up then, said Yuri. I have found a doctor for you. You have? Albert's face lit up. Oh God, what can I see him? I have an appointment for you for tomorrow evening, Yuri said. Here's the address. He handed Albert a piece of paper. Dr. Ernest Will. Is he a specialist in nervous troubles? Asked Albert. Not exactly, Yuri admitted. As a matter of fact, he only qualified as a doctor last week. You may even be his first patient. You know him as a student then. I know Ernest for years. Yuri hesitated for a few moments. He's not a fool, he warned Albert. What do you mean? Don't try to pull the wool over his eyes, that's all. Be frank with him, but don't pretend you got what you haven't. Not that you have decided anyone. Yuri added, you are the world's worst liar. Albert spent the next day wondering what to tell the doctor. When the time arrived for his appointment, he had worried over it so much that he really was quite nervous. I don't really know how to describe my troubles, Dr. Well, he began. Don't try, said the young doctor with a friendly smile. Yuri has already given me a history of the case. Oh, what did he say? Only that you want me to think you have had a nervous breakdown and say that you must go back to that school. Oh dear, Albert's face fell. He shouldn't have told you that. Why not? Isn't it true then? Yes, that's the trouble. Now you will say there's nothing wrong with me and you will tell me to go back to school. Don't be too sure of that, said the doctor. As a matter of fact, I am pretty sure that you are in nervous state about that school. But I haven't told you anything about it, said Albert, wide-eyed. How can you know that? Because you wouldn't have came to see me about this if you hadn't been pretty close to a nervous breakdown. That's why. Now, said the doctor briskly, if I certify that you have a nervous breakdown and must stay away from school for a while, what will you do? I will go to Italy, said Albert, to Milan, where my parents are. And what you will do there? I will try to get into an Italian college or institute. How can you, without a diploma? I will ask my mathematics teacher to give me something about my work, and perhaps that will be enough. I have learned all the maths they teach at school, and a bit more, he added, when Dr. Will looked doubtful. Well, it's up to you, he said. I doubt if it will come off, but I can see you are not doing yourself or anyone else much good by staying here. How long would you like me to say you should stay away from school? Would 6 months be all right? This is very kind of you. It's nothing. I have only just stopped being a student myself, so I know how you feel. Here you are, Dr. Will handed him the certificate and the best of luck. How much? Nothing. If you have anything to spare, invite Yuri to a meal. He is a good friend of mine and yours too, I think. Albert had no money to spare, but he pretended he had and took Yuri out to supper. Isn't it wonderful? He said after showing Yuri the certificate. Yes, it's fine, Yuri agreed. 6 months is a good period. This way you won't actually be leaving the school, so if the worst comes to the worst, you will be able to come back and carry on for your diploma. I will never go back to that place, Albert assured him. I am going to take this certificate to the head teacher tomorrow, and that will be the end of it. Don't forget to get a reference in writing from your mathematics teacher first, Yuri reminded him. Mr. Koch willingly gave Albert the reference he wanted. If I say I can't teach you anymore and probably you will soon be able to teach me, that will be all right? He asked. That's saying too much, sir, said Albert. It's only the truth, but all right. I will put it more seriously. It will still a glowing reference, and Mr. Koch made the point that Albert was ready immediately to enter a college or institute for the study of higher mathematics. I am sorry you are leaving us, although you are wasting your time in my class, he said. It's almost the only class where I am not wasting my time, said Albert. But how did you know I am leaving, sir? You wouldn't have asked me for this reference otherwise. I thought you would wonder. There's nothing to wonder about, Einstein. I knew you were going to leave before you knew yourself. Albert was puzzled. What did the teacher mean? He soon found out. Before he had a chance to ask for an interview with the head teacher, he was summoned to the head's room. Well, it saves me the trouble of having to wait an hour or two outside, he thought. He hardly bothered to wonder why he had been sent for, but vaguely supposed he has to be punished again for bad work and laziness. Well, he had finished with punishments. I am not going to punish you, the head teacher said to Albert's surprise. Your work is terrible, and I am not prepared to have you here any longer. Einstein, I want you to leave the school now. Leave school now, repeated Albert, dazed. That is what I said. You mean, said Albert, that I am to be expelled? You can take it that way if you wish, Einstein. The head teacher was not mincing words. The simplest thing will be for you to go of your own accord, and then the question won't arise. But, said Albert, what crime have I committed? Your presence in the classroom make it impossible for the teacher to teach and for the other pupil to learn. You refuse to learn, and you are in constant rebellion, and no serious work can be done while you are there. Albert felt the medical certificate almost burning a hole in his pocket. I was going to leave anyway, he said. Then we are in agreement at least, Einstein, the head said. For a moment, Albert was tempted to tell the man what he thought of him and of his school. Then he stopped himself. Without another word, holding his head high, he stalked out. Shut the door after you, shouted the head. Albert ignored him. He walked straight on, out of the school where he had spent 5 miserable years, without turning his head to give it a last look. He could not think of anyone he wanted to say goodbye to. Indeed, Yuri was almost the only person in Munich he felt like seeing before he left the town, and he had come to hate almost as much as the school. Elsa was back in Berlin and had no other real friends. Goodbye and good luck, said Yuri when he left. You are going to a wonderful country. I hope you will be happier there.